Indo Sri Lanka Navy vessels combat fire aboard MSC Daniela. Prime Minister informs Parliament there is no preliminary draft for the sale of the Hambantota port. UNP Working Committee meets. No decision on changing positions. Asad Sali makes a startling revelation.
Dimu Jayaratna Mataye moonokama අනිත් පැත්තට කැරකිලා ගිහිල්ලා ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇති වෙලා මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ වල්ලා කවුද යකෝ මේ අනිත් පැත්තෙන් එන්නේ මේ අගමැති උදුරට මෙයා ගියොත් වා මම සනීප කරන්න කියලා දැන් මෙයාව ගෙනියන ඇමරිකාවට දීපම් මෙයාට තරුණ වෙන්න ඉන්ජෙක්ෂන් එක.
A very good evening and welcome to Primetime News. We're coming to you live from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
A very good evening. I'm Zola Atskun. Let's start off with the stories in detail now.
In your developing story tonight, a fire was reported on board the MSC Daniela, which is one of the largest container cargo ships in the world. Sri Lankan and Indian Navy vessels were involved in containing the inferno.
Fire broke out on board the Panama-flagged MSC Daniela, owned by the Swiss Mediterranean Shipping Company, nearly 120 nautical miles off Colombo harbour last evening. The incident had taken place in the seas south of Colombo. The ship was reported to be sailing from Singapore to Egypt. After receiving a distress call, the Sri Lanka Navy and the Colombo Ports Authority had proceeded towards the cargo ship. MSC Daniela had changed course towards Colombo after the fire broke out following instructions given by the parent company. Indian Navy ships INS Gariel and INS Darshak, which paid a courtesy call to the Colombo port, were dispatched to join the efforts to battle the inferno. The Sri Lanka Navy also dispatched 2 fast attack craft to the location. Forces battled the blaze since last morning until this evening, while rescue teams at first managed to stop the blaze from spreading to other areas of the ship. Sri Lanka Air Force deployed a Bell 212 helicopter with a Bambi bucket to assist in dousing the fire. MSC Daniela can load 14,000 20-foot equivalent units and was carrying over 10,000 units at the time of the fire. Sri Lanka Navy said in a statement that 3 more fast attack craft were dispatched on scene for the evacuation of 21 crew members in a situation of the fire spreading. No casualties were reported. The Sri Lanka Navy said the fire extinguishing process took place 13 nautical miles away from land as the vessel was reportedly carrying hazardous material. Navy is monitoring any possibility of contents from the vessel contaminating the ocean.
The
Daniela vessel is located about 13 nautical miles away from Sri Lanka. The Sri Lanka Navy, together with the Indian Coast Guard Department, has been able to douse the fire. Even though the fire has been doused, there is an extreme heat. The cooling is currently taking place. Minister Arjuna Ranatunga called on the Mahanayakas of the Askiri and Malwati chapters of the Siam sect today. The minister paid reverence to the sacred tooth relic and called on the Mahanayaka of the Askari chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Warakagoda Sri Gnana Ratana Thero. The registrar of the Askari chapter, Venerable Dr. Madagoda Dhammananda Thero, also attended this meeting. Views were expressed on the Hambantota port being invested with a Chinese enterprise.
There was a document tabled in Parliament citing that it was signed. Is there any transparency in that? Especially in relation to some of the clauses.
There were serious issues in the first document. There were many things that were against the Act and we opposed that. There is a 60 to 70% difference in the new document. We have drafted it in accordance with the Acts. My personal view is that it needs to be tabled in Parliament. It must be presented to the Cabinet of Ministers as well.
We have not been informed of the exact lease period. We have requested for a meeting with the President in order to discuss this matter with him.
I opine for a lease of 50 years. The President is also of the same stance.
We need to be free of this debt. But we cannot make the country insecure simply because of that. We must think of national security. We cast our blessings upon you to ensure that this is thought through.
I am of that stance. I have no issue even if we have to leave this portfolio tomorrow. There is no point in remaining in these positions after doing wrong by the country.
It is better that decisions are made collectively. In relation to the administration and economic development of the country, there appears to be some form of impropriety.
Initially, the Sri Lankan Navy was also barred from entering. The President was firm that it cannot be done.
This will be seen as an intervention in global politics. As this involves China, there might be an issue with India. We must be prepared to face those issues in the future. Are there matters pertaining to the Trincomalee harbour as well?
A decision has not been reached. India has a keen interest in this.
The minister thereafter called on the Most Venerable the Batoabe Sri Sumangala Mahathero, the Mahanayaka of the Malwatu chapter.
This better be discussed by the President, the Prime Minister and the Subject Minister.
The issue is that other parties are intervening in this matter. There will be issues when we rush into things.
They have forgotten from where they began.
The United National Party Working Committee met this morning in Sirikota.
The meeting was presided over by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and saw the attendance of party seniors as well. Minister Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca, who arrived for the meeting, was seen leaving the premises moments after the meeting began. Special media attention was drawn towards this meeting as there were reports of a possible shuffle in the positions of the UMP.
There was a lengthy discussion on preparations that need to be made for a successful May Day rally.
Was there a discussion on positions within the party?
Since there were media reports, we discussed about it. We spoke about Minister Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca and Minister Akila Biraj Karivasam. Those matters will be raised in the future.
What is the new position that will be given to Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca?
He rendered a great service. He contested the 2010 presidential election and garnered 4.2 million votes.
Was there a proposal for a position?
There was a proposal made earlier. It will be granted. No one objected to it. For decades, UNP supporters were victims of revenge. Some lost their jobs and were made helpless. So how are we to bring an end to this era? We discussed the measures that need to be taken. We have decided to permanently remove political revenge from the agenda within this year. The working committee also passed a rule to ensure that persons who do not attend 3 consecutive meetings chaired by the Prime Minister as non-members of the committee.
When will the delayed elections be held?
I'm not prepared to have an election that is based on the demarcations of Basil Rajapaksa. That was done to ensure that the advantage goes to his faction.
Handing
over the Hambantota port to a Chinese company was debated in Parliament today. There were media reports that the initial draft, the sale to the Chinese company, has been drafted and that it was approved by Cabinet. This was confirmed by the Cabinet spokesperson as well. The public is baffled because a court case filed by MP Vasudeva is in the Supreme Court. Will the Prime Minister take steps to table the Cabinet-approved document in Parliament?
There is no agreement to sell to a Chinese company. They gave full control of the port city land to China. It was given for 99 years and now all the banks are asking for this. I was able to remove that outright ownership clause. International maritime law dictates that this land is not part of the country. It is part of the exclusive economic zone which we don't own. You spoke about a court case. The plaintiff did not reveal to court that he was a cabinet minister who agreed to these deals back when he was a cabinet minister. He must be punished for not revealing all details to court. You spoke about media reports. These are the same media institutions that wrote glowing pieces when land was given for the Port City project. Which media institute said this was wrong?
එකක් කියලා. කොයි මාධ්‍යද කිව්වේ මේක වැරදි කියලා. දැන් මේ ලොකුවට ගහන්නේ. මම මාධ්‍යයත් ඔක්කොම ගෙනල්ලා අහන්නම්කෝ දැන්.
You gave a 17-minute response, but you did not answer my question. My question was, are you going to table this information in Parliament? The debt and interest that should be paid for the Hambantota port stands at 1.262 billion rupees over a period of 20 years. That's less than $70 million a year.
The question raised is as follows. Was there an agreement drawn up to sell the port to a Chinese company? I said that there is no such agreement. This is a joint venture. We will be leasing it out. The framework agreement was signed and further discussions are underway. When we receive this money, we will be able to pay it off. We won't have to wait 20 years. This will reduce our debt by a further 1.1 billion. He speaks as if this is the only debt we have. We have a total debt of $36 billion. We cannot pay this. I don't know what the Attorney General said back then. Earlier, it was the UDA that was going to sign this agreement, not the Ministry of Ports. Let's appoint a committee to look into this.
He said, I will be jailed for insulting court.
I said members of the joint opposition like going to jail. I said I will not send my friend to prison. He will have to apologize to the Supreme Court for lying to them.
President Maithripala Sirisena is looking into the matter of the National Museum being given for the use of non-governmental organizations or other private events.
There were reports that the premises of the National Museum was to be given to host a fashion show. Focusing his attention on the matter on the 10th of March, the President has informed the Director of National Museums to ensure that a mechanism is in place to prevent non-governmental organizations from hosting promotional campaigns at the museum premises. Later, the director has written to the Secretary of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Environment Development and Cultural Affairs. The letter reads that the Prime Minister had summoned him to Temple Trees on the 9th of February and instructed him to provide the museum premises for a fashion show. At a time when the President has taken a firm decision on such a matter, the Secretary to the Prime Minister issues another directive to the Secretary of the Ministry of Cultural Affairs on the 15th of March. According to this letter, the Prime Minister has appointed a committee to draft a set of guidelines that would see the museum premises being given for government institutions, accepted non-governmental organizations and private institutions. In addition, the Prime Minister has also prepared another committee to draft a plan to develop the museum. What is interesting is that this committee comprises of well-known businessmen.
පෞද්ගලික රාජ්‍ය මූල සංවිධාන සහ පෞද්ගලික ආයතන වලට සංදර්ශන සහ ප්‍රචාර කටයුතු කරන්න එපා කියලා ජනාධිපතිවරයා ලිඛිතව දැනුම් දීමක් කළා තියෙනවා.
නෑ ඒක දීලා ඒක නවත්තලා දෙනවා අවලං කරලා දෙනවා. සභා දුන්න අවසරය අවලං කරලා දෙනවා.
ඒ කමිටි එකක් පිටවල තියෙනවා අගමැතිතුමාගේ නියෝගයේ ඒ ගයිඩ්ලයින් එකක් හදන්න අවසර දෙන්න කියලා.
නෑ ඒ ගයිඩ්ලයින් එකක් හදනවා ඇති. නමුත් දැනට ඒ අවසර දීම අවලං කරලා තියෙනවා.
මෛත්‍රීපාල සිරිසේන ජනාධිපතිතුමා පැහැදිලි උපදෙසක් ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා.
President Maithripala Sirisena has given a clear instruction. He has instructed the cabinet and the government to take decisions that would favour the country in accordance with the mandate of the people. When the central bank bond scam took place, I was the one who made the first complaint to the Bribery Commission. The President intervened in that matter as well as in other matters that would cause divisions in society and took a decision that would be better for the country. National resources will not be sold. If there is a joint venture with the private sector, the requirement of the government and the needs of the people must be given due consideration. That is how we function. Decisions that would harm the nation will never be taken.
කිසිදු ආකාරයක රටට හිත කර කිසිදු දෙයක් වෙන්න ජනාධිපතිතුමාට දෙන්න නැtei කියන එක මට ස්ථිර වශයෙන්ම සඳහන් කරන්න.
President intervenes to protect the museum. Former governor of the central bank accused of being linked to the bond scam. Attempts to retain him as the governor foiled through the intervention of the president. President instructs Muhundan Kanage be appointed as director of ICTA and not as CEO. Attempts to move FCID documents to other institutions foiled. What other matters will the president have to put a stop to in the future?
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Qatar has issued a travel advisory urging Qatari nationals not to travel to Sri Lanka due to health reasons. A statement issued by the Qatari Foreign Secretary says that an official source at the Department of Consular Affairs of the Foreign Ministry said that Sri Lankan official authorities confirmed the spread of swine flu, also known as H1N1, in Sri Lanka. The release said that there have been reports of a number of people with the disease and the death of some of them. The source thereby had urged Qatari nationals not to travel to Sri Lanka except in cases of extreme necessity until health conditions in Sri Lanka improve.
The case filed against State Minister A.H.M. Fauzi for misusing a vehicle belonging to the Disaster Management Centre while he was the subject minister was taken up today. The case was taken up before Colombo Chief Magistrate Lal Ranasinghe Bandara.
The case was filed against A.H.M. Fauzi by the Bribery Commission for the misuse of an SUV worth 20 million rupees provided through Dutch funds from 2010 to 2015 and causing an unlawful loss to the government. President's counsel Shavendra Fernando, who appeared on behalf of the defendant filing a primary objection, pointed out that the case has been filed in violation of the provisions of the law. Court informed that a decision on the objection filed by the counsel will be delivered on the 5th of May. There is nothing to say. Court will deliver a just verdict. There is a precedent in the country that when one is produced in court, one is innocent until proven guilty. The judiciary is independent. We believe that this precedent will prevail. Court functions on that precedent. We will see about that later. We hope to address it later.
Was there a breach of trust at the central bank? Well, this was a topic of discussion at this morning's Newsline program.
Breach of trust is viewed rather dimly by the legal system, isn't it?
It's a serious offence. It's a serious offence.
Does the governor of the central bank, does he have a duty that is covered by this Trust Act?
It is actually, because the Employees Provident Fund, the Monetary Board is actually the trustee of the monies belonging to the members of the Provident Fund. So the governor, led by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, is responsible for this.
It looks like they've been fast asleep.
Board will have now wake up from that sleep, Farad, because otherwise what would happen is there's a chance of some outside party taking the board to courts now, because there was an article written by somebody from the legal fraternity.
Yeah.
He had said that the Minister of Justice or trade unions can take the Monetary Board to courts in terms of trust ordinance.
In a story that we're following closely here at News First, yesterday the General Manager of Sri Lanka Railways, in an interview with News First, explained his stance and the actions being taken into the importation of 12 locomotives for the upcountry railway line. However, questions continue to remain on the timeline of events that preceded the tender.
Recently, Newsfirst as well as several other print media outlets highlighted that possible corruption was brewing within Sri Lanka Railways with regard to the decision to purchase 12 locomotives for service in the upcountry railway line. Newsfirst has learned that Sri Lanka Railways is in the process of finalizing a deal with General Electric, a manufacturer based in USA. Incidentally, in 2012, GE had placed an unsolicited bid in order to supply locomotives of the upcountry railway line. The very next year, a group of 4 officials connected to Sri Lanka Railways embarked on an assessment and study tour of GE locomotives in Tibet, which Newsfirst has learned was fully funded by General Electric, which placed the unsolicited bid. Sources revealed to Newsfirst that several members of the group on the tour of Tibet in 2013 also played a part in drafting the technical specifications for the latest tender, and they were also in the technical evaluation committee.
There was a thing like that, but that had nothing to do with this tender.
Okay.
That was an unsolicited offer they brought a couple of years back. There was a period in former government that unsolicited offers were entertained.
Yeah.
If then management decided for some senior officers to go and have a look for the purpose of looking at this, considering the unsolicited offer. It's only one party, no? That kind of thing would have happened. I don't deny. But, however, the Tibet locomotive which is running is not the locomotive we are asking now.
So you are expressly saying that this trip to Tibet in 2013 has nothing to do with this tender,
This
right?
tender. Nothing to do with this.
Weren't 2 of these members in the technical evaluation committee that was put together to prepare this tender specifications for this time around, for 2016?
Most of these officers are there, not all. But in railway, this kind of technical committee, there are very few people can be appointed, because they must be senior enough, their rank must be high, there must be recognition for the committee officers. Many of them have been appointed. But my point is this: railway specification has been prepared to suit the railway department.
International companies have connections to certain officials here. These companies are companies which manufacture engines and carriages. As per the requirements of these companies, the officials travel overseas with or without the permission of the relevant authorities. The companies sometimes pay for these overseas tours. The objective of these international companies is to sell the product they manufacture to some country. So they have connections to officials in countries like Sri Lanka and other countries for this purpose. What they want to do is to sell the engines or the carriages they manufacture at a high cost. There is a massive scam in this. Politicians are involved in this. The management is involved in this. The high authorities are involved in this. Certain people of the railways are involved in this. We condemn this. Minister of Justice Vijaydas Rajapaksa commented on a statement made by former President Mahinda Rajapaksa recently.
There was a statement made last week that he did not sell state assets, but he brought them back. The examples he used were Apollo Hospitals and Sri Lanka Insurance. This is a false statement which misleads the public. He has not been able to buy back anything. We obtained it through court. He used the Attorney General to extend the duration of this court case by 2 years. The Supreme Court still called for the COPE recommendations to be implemented. It was through the COPE recommendations that the state was able to take back Sri Lanka Insurance, lands belonging to the Port Authority, Apollo Hospitals and even Litrogas. In the Lanka Marine Services case, the Supreme Court gave a clear ruling that PB Jayasundara should not be allowed to hold a government position once again. This order was issued by Chief Justice Sarath Silva. The Supreme Court ruling was changed through a motion when the next Chief Justice was installed.
In more local news, the Movement for Unity Through Power Devolution convened a media briefing in Colombo today.
When Mahinda
Rajapaksa was appointed for a second term, he changed the constitution. He wanted to remain as president for the rest of his life. While doing that, he goes to America and gets a special injection to make him appear youthful. This cost millions of rupees. Every year he had to take this injection. He took steps to import this injection to Singapore every year, and he travels to Singapore to get it. Who pays for it? It is the innocent taxpayers of this country. He used public funds for injections to appear youthful every year. Then suddenly Prime Minister D.M. Jayaratne suffered a stroke. His facial muscles were distorted, and it came to a point where he could not continue in this post. Jayaratne informs Mahinda Rajapaksa that he cannot carry out with this position. Mahinda Rajapaksa was aware that Maithripala would have taken over if Jayaratne stepped down. He did not want Maithripala to get his position. Jayaratne was sent to America to seek treatment. He too received the injection of youth. This was all public funds. I challenge Mahinda Rajapaksa to come to an open forum and state that I am lying. I have all the documents with me. Well, reports of a proposal for complaints regarding tenders submitted to the Police Financial Crimes Division be directed to the National Procurement Commission were raised at the Cabinet media briefing held today.
That is a lie. There is a case against State Minister Fauzi for moving a vehicle from one ministry to another. There is a circular for that. As it is missing, a case has been filed. I mentioned it in the Cabinet yesterday and I believe the hearing is today. One minister made a proposal citing that these are led by the Bribery Commission. That is how proposals are made when there are much bigger issues.
A special ceremony was held at the Parliamentary Complex this morning to welcome the Minister of Finance, Ravi Karunanayake, who was recently recognized as the best finance minister of Asia.
ජනවාරි මාසේ 8 වෙනිදා 2015 සිට ශීඝ්‍ර වර්ධනයක්.
From the 8th of January 2015, we have been able to gain a significant growth financially. This award was an appreciation of this. We have been able to bring about fiscal discipline. This is the best opportunity because the world is watching us, especially because the President and the Prime Minister are working together. We should use this opportunity for the growth of the nation.
The Sirasa Vesak Zone, jointly organized by the Capital Maharaja Organisation Limited and John Keel's Holdings, will be held this year as well on a grand scale. This morning, the Mahanayakas of the Malwatu and Askiri chapters were informed about the undertaking.
Members of the organizing committee visited Kandy today and first called on the Mahanayaka of the Askiri chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Warakagoda Sri Yanaratana Thero. The delegation informed the Mahanayaka on matters relating to the Sirasa Vesak zone. Thereafter, they called on the Most Venerable Tibbatuwawe Sri Sumangala Mahatero, the Mahanayaka of the Malwatu chapter of the Siam sect, and informed him about the Sirasa Vesak zone. This year, the Sirasa Vesak zone will commence following the Bak Full Moon Poetry telecast from the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic in Kandy. We will also have a cup erecting ceremony at the Shakyamalakia located in the vicinity of the Capital Maharaja Organisation Limited. 2017 will see the International Vesak Festival celebrated. The Sri Lanka Navy, as it did the last time, will support the Sirasa Vesak zone through dansals as well as street parades to make it an event of splendour. John Keel's Holdings will be involved with the Sirasa Vesak zone for the fourth time to celebrate the festival in a grand manner. The Sirasa Vesak zone will take place from the 10th to the 12th of May at the head office premises of the Capital Maharaja Organisation Limited, located down Braywood Street, Colombo 2.
The launch of the book Ranil Wickramasinghe, A Political Biography, took place yesterday.
Penned by Dinesh Virakodi, the book launch saw the attendance of President Maithripala Sirisena as well. Dr. Shashi Tharoor delivered the keynote address.
The conclusion of the armed conflict saw the emergence of a major humanitarian challenge. For instance, with nearly 300,000 Tamil civilians housed in camps for internally displaced persons, and India has been proud to work actively in the 4 R's of relief, rehabilitation, resettlement and reconciliation in the northern and eastern provinces, from financial contributions and hospital services to providing even 7 Indian demining teams to help expedite resettlement. Take, for instance, a housing project for 50,000 internally displaced persons that is underway with Indian support valued at $270 million. Add the railway plans to which we have committed lines of credit of 1.1 billion to reconnect the north of the island to the south. India has also openly expressed the need for national reconciliation through a political settlement of ethnic issues at the highest levels. And our consistent position is in favour of a negotiated political settlement with all actors, which is acceptable to all communities and is consistent with democracy, pluralism and respect for human rights.
In Parliament, we have all arrived at one stance. We must all come together and bring about lasting peace and monumental development for the country. We were deprived of that opportunity for 3 decades. We need to take this opportunity and move forward. We require better dialogue and cooperation. Based on that need, We put forward President Maithripala Sirisena as the common candidate at the presidential elections, and upon his victory, we established a government and formed the national government where both major parties can work together. This is a victory for the country.
Well, that's a wrap up the news for tonight. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Joel Outscoring.
And I'm Mahina Bongso. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.
Good night.